like to talk a little bit about this Occupy movement that all the kids are so crazy about these days. The media would have you believe that the protesters are either socialists or communists who want the government to give them something for nothing, or even more simply just get the rich people. Or clueless kids that have no idea why they're there, they just like to dress up like hippies and have a good time. And while those elements do exist within the movement, it's by no means the majority of the people. The majority of the people protesting are pissed off to one degree or another about our banking system in this country. Unfortunately, not a lot of people really understand how the banking system works here, which is a shame because it's really simple to understand. The powers that be would like you to think it's really complicated and you could never understand it, so leave it to the experts, but it's easy. And believe me, I'm a product of the public school system. I went to art school. I am by no means a mathematician or an economist. So if I can understand this, anybody can understand this. Here's how it works. I'll just give you an example. Our system, our banking system, operates under what is called fractional reserve banking. Big scary name for a big scary scam. You make $100 at your job. You take that $100 and you deposit it in the bank. The bank, because by law they're supposed to keep a cash reserve on hand, although they don't always follow this law. Just for the sake of argument, let's say they take 10% to keep as a cash reserve. So you deposit $100, they take 10%, set it aside, which is $10. The other $90 they loan out to your neighbor who wants to buy an MP3 player. So your neighbor takes that $90 he borrowed, buys the MP3 player, whatever big box store he wants to shop at. The big box store takes that $90 and deposits it in their bank. So that bank takes 10% of the $90, $9, sets it aside as a cash reserve. Takes the other $81 and loans it out. So now you've got, what, $171 floating around out there with only $19 in cash reserves to back it. So say the guy down the street needs to buy some groceries, so he borrows $81 from that bank to buy his groceries. The grocery store takes that $81, deposits it in their bank, they take $8.10, put it in reserve, and loan out the rest. And the cycle continues and continues and continues until your $100 becomes $1,000. Even though there's only $100 in cash that actually exists, they keep loaning out that phony money, that money that doesn't exist. And it's all perfectly legal. So maybe we should not be focusing so much on the banks and asking the government to regulate them even more when it's the government that makes it legal for the banks to run this scam. If the government said, hey, we're getting rid of all these laws, then the banks wouldn't legally be able to operate that way. Just my opinion, but it's something to think about. Now, the other part of the way our economy works is the Federal Reserve. Now, unless you've been living under a rock for the last 10 years, you've at least heard of the Federal Reserve. What a lot of people still don't know is that the Federal Reserve is not a federal agency. It is not part of our government at all. It's no more federal than Federal Express. And they certainly don't have any reserves. So here's how the Fed controls our economy. The Fed decides that we need an injection of $100 billion in the economy. So what do? They write a check for $100 billion, drawn on themselves. Where does the money come from? Nobody knows. It doesn't exist. They just write that check, sprinkle some fairy dust on it, and poof, there's $100 billion. So then the Fed takes this check of this phony money, this fiat money, and takes it to a treasury bond dealer like Goldman Sachs. Says, hey, Goldman Sachs, give me $100 billion worth of treasury bonds. Goldman Sachs gives them the bonds. Goldman Sachs then takes that check they were given, deposits it in their bank, enter the fractional reserve system, where the bank can keep loaning out that money over and over and over again. So that $100 billion ends up turning into $1 trillion or more, even though the money doesn't exist except as ones and zeros on a hard drive somewhere. That's the long and the short of it. That's how our economy works. Now, there's more to it than that. There's more dirty tricks that get played. It's how our economic cycles happen. Completely artificial, caused by the Federal Reserve, causing booms and busts in the economy and profiting either way. But I'll get more into that in another video. So, those are the basics of how our banking system works. I didn't believe it either when I first found out about it years ago. But it's true. Look it up for yourself. Take one night off from football or American Idol or whatever your carnival entertainment of choice is. And I'm not denigrating you for that. I'm guilty of it too. But just take a night off and do some research online. We've got the greatest repository of knowledge known to man at our fingertips. Let's use it. Research it yourself. Find out the truth of how our system works. And then get really pissed off. And then demand a change. Demand an end to the Federal Reserve. We could kick them out. It's not mandated in the Constitution that we have a central bank. In fact, most of the Founding Fathers were heavily against a central bank. But I'll get into that more in another video. You have the basics. Go forth, research on your own, learn what you can, and then decide what you can do to effect a change. I'm Jedediah Strange, doing my bit to restore America.